Hello, this is Zeth. I just wanted to give my commentary of the making of this Zetharoni episode, the Pacific Rim one. As you can see, this was one of the first ones where I started to add more of scripted content, where I tried to be a bit more experimental with my camera angles and other things. So you can see I can go back and forth a lot more with my angles compared to previous episodes that I did where I was just talking into the microphone, or every once in a while I would have myself come on camera, but, not piecing more video footage together. The reason I chose Pacific Rim as my next big video idea was it was something that was very special to me when it came to the video itself, or the movie itself. If you've been a part of this channel for a long time, you know that Godzilla is something that's very special to me as well. So when it comes to Pacific Rim, and when that came out, it was something that wasn't really talked about, sort of in the same vein of Speed Racer. And as time has gone on, it's been a lot more better when it comes to how people remember it.
Within my opinion, the best film of that year.
Okay, so now we come to the part when I have to have every single part of the video copyright stricken. This video took me forever to make because of two reasons. One, I had a 20-hour marathon in one night of editing. I went from about 5 to about 4 in the morning, maybe 5 in the morning. It was just basically an all-day editing spree for me. I was very sick. We were kind of snowed in, so it was basically I was doing nothing, so I thought, let me make the video right now. Bad mistake. Don't ever do a 20-hour marathon like that. It's not a terrible thing to do, but I mean, it definitely wasn't something that I remember making. I don't really remember making this video as far as season 1 goes. I'm starting to lose a lot of my memories of making season 1, but this is the one video I really don't remember making. But when it came to this video in particular, I had to go through the copyright claim almost 10 to 18 times, I want to say. It was almost impossible to get this video up. When it comes to footage, that's just the way it goes when it comes to reviewing movies or making a retrospective. Sometimes you get lucky, other times you don't. I have been very fortunate when it comes to making videos. For the most part, I'm pretty good about not having any copyright issues. I think about my best of 2022. I think that has an issue of it right now currently. But that's the only video that has a current copyright strike on it or a current copyright claim on it that they just won't let go. But this is the one video I feel has the most blemishes because of this reason. I had to black and white most of the footage, as well as having our old logo on top of copyright Warner Media. I literally could not get it through the copyright system for nothing. If it was claiming the audio, it wouldn't. If it claimed the video, it wouldn't. And it was just everything. It was such a mess.
Remind you of Godzilla or Gamera? I get the feeling that first kaiju looks very familiar. But other than that, they're all pretty unique, with each having its own ability or strength that I've never seen in another kaiju movie. That being said though, while the kaiju are cool, this is the first monster film that makes me root for the giant mechs. These designs are just as cool, with some excellent level of detail from the different visors to even little things like decals and paint to give them that extra character. When one of the mechs goes down, it feels like a main character just died.
One thing that, if you can't tell when I'm making this video, is I was very sick when I made this video. I can tell because it's kind of my sick-ish voice, where I'm kind of a little more deep. It feels like I have something in my throat a little bit, at least to me. I don't think the video suffered as in terms of the quality of it. Like, I'm still very much pleased with all of my Zetharoni videos. I don't think there's one that I've really made where I'm disappointed with how it turned out, or where I had to completely eradicate it. I feel like the reason I'm remaking the Speed Racer video is not because my opinions have changed, but just because my equipment has changed and I'm a better editor, so I feel like I can do better. But for the most part, my opinions really haven't. The way that I express my opinions have gotten better over time. Like, I feel now I'm a lot more confident in my writing skill. I'm a lot more confident in my comedy. I'm a lot more confident when it comes to just if I put a thought or a statement out there in the wild, I feel confident in that statement, if that makes any sense. When I was making season 1, there's a lot of times in the earlier Zetharoni episodes when you notice maybe I go a little more quiet than usual, or maybe the video is a lot more quiet compared to the energy that I have now. And that's just because I wasn't as confident in what I was saying during the time. I think this is one thing I've tried to avoid nowadays when I do my Zetharoni videos, where if it's a big retrospective, I will try not to have the movie as in play-by-play like I did for this or for Speed Racer, where I just feel like the audience member might have already seen the movie, or if they are interested in the movie, they will pause the video and they'll go watch the movie and then come back. Like, it's fine for the most part if the movie is like really forgotten, or if it's kind of like a B movie, or if you're making fun of it. Like, that's fine in my opinion. But I kind of get tired of this, we're going to go through the movie scene by scene. I'm going to tell you what the scenes are saying, and then I can give you my thoughts along the way. I just feel like nowadays when I give a review, like with La La Land, or for instance with The City of Ember, I just give you what I like about the movie. That's about it. Or if it's a bit more of the details behind the scenes, that's about it. If you want to watch the movie, you can go watch the movie. That's about it.
They're not invincible. You see how powerful the kaiju are getting as well. It also adds a scary thought of the drift. In the drift, all of your memories, your thoughts, your feelings are shared between the two, whether it be good ones or even bad ones. So when Raleigh's brother gets yanked out of the Jaeger, their brains are still connected.
First drifts are rough. But you weren't just tapping into my memories, you were tapping into my brother's too.
So Raleigh had to feel what his brother felt as he died. That's a really scary thought. On top of adding a ton to his character, why he quit, and why he's so picky about his future co-pilots. So 5 years after this incident, it ends up being that the world leaders decide not to put any more money.
I guess when it comes to the Zetharoni videos, just to be clear, is that when you're watching a Zetharoni video, it's 100% directed, written, and edited by myself, Zeth. Like, you're getting the full entire experience of what my opinion is without any meddling from others. It was different in the beginning when making a video of this kind of caliber, like with Speed Racer or with Voltron. It was a bit different as in terms of the I wasn't very good with sound editing. Jace was excellent at sound editing. You can tell that with some of the podcast episodes where I would do the edit of making sure, everything's in place, but then Jace would go in to make sure our voices are okay. Jace got really good with it, better than I ever did, but I started to get better, so I started to do it myself more. And I think I've gotten better, hopefully, but it's still something I'm always working on. But just when you're watching a Zetharoni episode, it's my definitive thoughts on that subject. I try not to make my videos outdated. There'll be a few like sayings or such things as me saying, "Oh, this movie's coming out in this year," but then it's already come out if you watch it a year from now. But if you watch something, for instance, like this video, I feel like it gives my definitive thoughts on Pacific Rim. There's nothing that really outdates the video. Same thing for something like Speed Racer or my Pinocchio video. There might be little sayings like, "Oh, Little Mermaid's coming out around the corner," or Lilo and Stitch. I'm kind of scared for those releases, but then you get something like my thoughts on it later down the road. The only time that I try not to do a lot is my first thoughts. It's different when it's a brand spanking new movie, like my first thoughts series of Zetharoni videos. That's my first thoughts coming right out of the theater. But it's called first thoughts for a reason, because later down the road, my thoughts can possibly change. When it comes to a definitive Zetharoni episode like Godzilla vs. Biollante, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Speed Racer, Pacific Rim, Pinocchio, I try to really give my definitive full thoughts so I never have to retread water in future videos. You'll always hear something along the lines of how I got into something, because a lot of my loves of content or video games or music really link together really well. Like, oh, I got into music because of Guardians of the Galaxy when that first released, and the reason I got into Guardians of the Galaxy was because of Marvel, and the reason I got into Marvel was because of Speed Racer, and the reason I got into Speed Racer was because of Hot Wheels, and the reason I got into Hot Wheels was because of Thomas. So a lot of my likes link together, so you'll hear that in a lot of my videos, but I try not to retread water a whole lot.
That Mako was indeed selected finally. When drifting though, you're supposed to let all these memories flow like a movie. They're not real, but you can get lost in one, what they call chasing the rabbit. Mako gets lost in one of them, where you learn that she had a traumatized childhood with memories of running from a kaiju attack. You also learn that Marshall is her adoptive father, and that he was piloting Jaegers as well, but is also the only other person besides Rowley to have done it alone successfully. Because she got lost in the memory, she nearly blows up the whole place. With them successfully shutting down the experiment, the Marshal grounds them. Rowley tries to convince the Marshal that she is the only one that is compatible with him to pilot, but he doesn't want to hear it, with some great acting by Idris Elba.
I do not need your sympathy or your admiration. All I need is your compliance and your fighting skills. And if I can't get that, then you can go back to the wall that I found you crawling on.
Just then, 2 more kaiju are finally making their rise, doing the first double kaiju attack. Everyone is sent out but Raleigh and Mako's Jaeger. During this, Newt goes to see the black market dealer. But when he tells him about his successful drift with the kaiju, you learn that the kaiju are coming to find Newt due to the two-way streak that happens with the drift. The editing that happens during these fights I cannot commend enough. Long takes with wide shots. That's how it's done! With the
You saw that little jab at King of the Monsters that came later. I probably could have linked a joke to that, but I don't really rewatch a lot of my videos. I try not to. It's just something that I don't really like to do a whole lot. Like, I mean, I devote a lot of hours to a making of these videos, especially the longer ones. Sometimes it can take up to months, like the Hot Wheels retrospective. Other times it can only take a day. But I devoted my time to that. I don't really need to watch my own content or hear my own thoughts. I just think that's a little weird. I mean, each to their own. But for me, the only time I'll rewatch a video is if I have a joke set up, like at the end of this, for example. I have the joke set up of me being hit over the head with a frying pan that leads into the episode of She-Hulk. But I could have probably done something in my Godzilla King of the Monsters episode to tie it back to Pacific Rim. Again, I think that while none of my videos I'm really disappointed with, I think for the most part when it comes to my videos that I retread a lot of the plot in a movie. Those are some of my weaker videos in my opinion. Yes, even Speed Racer, because for the most part that video is me treading the same water of let's talk about the movie in its entirety, but you know, it's really not necessary unless it's something that not a lot of people have seen. Yes, I'll make the exception for Pacific Rim here and Speed Racer, but these are also some of my first reviews that I did and videos, so I really didn't know what I was doing to a certain extent. I knew what people liked, but Season 1 was very experimental. If you look, like, 1 minute, I was doing a very comedy-esque video, like Voltron, for example, is a very comedy routine, but then you have something like Speed Racer or this that's a little more serious in tone. I don't know. I was just really trying to find my footing as in terms of how I relate content while doing scripts without seeming like a beat-for-beat copy of someone else.
Throughout the whole film, kaiju are categorized sort of like a natural disaster, depending on their threat level. This new kaiju is a Category 5, the biggest and baddest one yet. While Stryker takes that one head on, Gypsy Danger takes on the original two. Gypsy gets its arm torn off and its leg damaged, but they still manage to tear one up in an awesome way. Oh, that's awesome. Because they're both getting beat up, Stryker decides to detonate its reactor right now. So it blows up.
Again, the main point that I had with this video was that I really wanted to emphasize that, yes, while Godzilla 2014, when it came out, that kind of jump-started a little more of the kaiju craze, but Pacific Rim was the thing that reignited it, because if you don't know, a lot of the kaiju movies, there weren't really a thing in the early 2000s. You know, when Godzilla went away in Final Wars, that was it. That was it for the longest time until 2014. And then another thing I wanted to really emphasize was the casting for this. You know, you had Ron Perlman, who was most famous for probably his Hellboy movies, and then maybe even, I think he was in one of the Alien movies, but you know, he was the most popular actor in this movie. Charlie Day, Charlie Hunnam, and Idris Elba really weren't known people at this point. You know, it was really cool to kind of look back on this movie and be like, oh wow, like all these people that are big names now, like, you know, Charlie Day has Always Sunny in Philadelphia as one of the longest running comedy shows. You have Idris Elba, who's, you know, a movie star in and of himself. And, you know, Charlie Hunnam, you know, he's a pretty well-known actor as well. Not as known as the other two, in my opinion, but, you know, it's cool to look back on some of these movies and be like, oh, wow, like, all these actors are in it that weren't really that famous at the time.
That's television. This was his first big break for movies. The same goes for almost everybody else. Charlie Hunnam. This was his first big blockbuster movie. Kinko Kukunchi. This was her first role that really drew people to know her worldwide. The one role, though, that really skyrocketed was Idris Elba. Before this, yeah, he had a show and played Heimdall in Thor, but that was just a very small role. And his show, while it's very good and popular, you can see that he just wasn't the movie star that he is now. Pacific Rim is just awesome. I can't recommend it enough, even if you're not a monster fan.
Yes, but isn't there a sequel?
Another thing about Pacific Rim Uprising is that it's not really mentioned in this video, other than it's just really bad and that I took a friend to it and, you know, we all hated it. But, you know, that's going to be a video in it of itself if I ever get to it. That's a movie I haven't seen since I saw it in the theaters, so maybe my thoughts have changed on it, but if I remember correctly, it's a very, very, very bad movie. But yeah, that's about it for Pacific Rim. This one is not one I really remember too often making or recording it. A lot of things have changed, such as the game room and where I place my games now right there. But yeah.